Henrietta Lever.
Is that who owned it?
No, that's who went to
You guys want
second.
to move in a little tighter just because it might be hard to hear with the traffic. I know Mr. Renzie Park is having a hard time hearing it. Although I know that Tom wants to project. So it's probably not as, won't be as much of a problem. Or, I mean, towards the bottom.
I brought my journal along and wrote up a really nice presentation for everyone. Okay? And then going over my notes really surprised me of what actually went on around here. Sure is good to be back in the Ohio Valley. But I have to tell you, I wasn't sure I was going to make it. When Major General Braddock left Fort Cumberland in Maryland on May 29, 1755, I began the journey with him and some 500 soldiers and militia. But not too far along on the way, I became quite ill. The fever and headache were bad, but the pain was unbearable. Even lying down in the wagon was excruciating because of all the jolting and bouncing. I hated to do this, but I asked Braddock to leave me with the guard to wait for Colonel Dunbar's detachment to come along. He said, "Colonel Washington, I need my aide-de-camp with me when we face the French in Pittsburgh. So yes, you can wait for Dunbar, and I will wait for you." Although I hated not being with the troops, waiting was the best thing I could have done. When Dunbar arrived, his doctor gave me Dr. James's powder. It eased the pain and discomfort immediately, and even the fever went away. It's because of that miracle drug that I finally made it to this wonderful part of the country. And I'm glad General Braddock kept his promise to wait for me before advancing to Fort Duquesne. But enough about my life. This area brings back a lot of memories, some good and some, say, well, a little bit chilling to say the least. My first time in the Ohio Valley was 2 years ago in 1753. I pretty much took the same 120-mile path that we took this time, but it sure wasn't 12 feet wide. Braddock's men created a mighty fine road. The general told me they used picks, shovels, saws, horses, oxen, and the occasional gunpowder. Hopefully, Braddock's road will continue to be used for many years. Getting back to my first visit, I was 23 and a major when Lieutenant Governor Dinwiddie sent me to ask the French troops to leave this region. We left Williamsburg in October and arrived at Fort Le Boeuf near Lake Erie in mid-December. I gave them the letter from Dinwiddie, and 2 days later they very politely said they had no intention on leaving. That wasn't the response we were hoping for, so we began the journey back to Williamsburg in the dead of winter. Now, let me tell you, it was a rough journey getting to the fort. It was even more adventurous on the way back. Fortunately, I was not traveling by myself because I could have perished on more than one occasion. My good friend and guide, Christopher Gist, was with me. He saved my life twice. Would you like to hear about our adventure?
Sure.
We encountered attacks by native tribes, and one such encounter was way too close for comfort. That was the first time Gist saved my life. Fortunately, the fellow was not a very good shot, or I probably wouldn't be here today. Adding to the adventure was the deep snow and freezing temperatures. When it was time to cross the Allegheny on December 29th, I thought the river would be frozen, but I was wrong. It was frozen near the shore, but not in the center. We had only one hatchet, and not a very good one at that. But we used it to cut logs and make a raft. Huge chunks of ice rushing down the river were crashing into the raft, and I lost my balance and fell into the icy water. And Gist had to pull me out. current was so strong that there was no way we were going to make it on the other side with our raft. So we decided there was an island not too far away, and we swam through the icy water to that island. Neither of us could believe we made it. Gist's fingers and toes were frozen, and he actually lost some of his toes. But we were alive. The next day, the river was completely frozen, and we were able to cross. We were about 10 miles from John Frazier's cabin at the mouth of the Jordan. So we went there for a couple of days. That is where we will be gathering tomorrow before heading to Fort Duquesne. During our visit, John told me about Queen Arillotta, whom he met several years ago. Apparently, she gave him several hundred acres of land. She and her group of about 30 Seneca families were living at the mouth of the Youghiogheny River, not too far from here. Frazier got word that I failed to visit her on my way north, and she was not happy. I didn't realize she was such a powerful leader, and very much respected by the people in this area, and she expected to be treated as such. But most importantly, she was a friend of the English. I wanted to make amends, so after resting a few days at the cabin, Gist and I made a special trip about 3 miles upriver to visit her. I presented her with a match coat and a bottle of rum. Between you and me, I think she preferred the bottle of rum. She must have accepted my apology, because when she heard what was going on at Fort Necessity a short time later, she and her group came to help, but we barely had enough food for the soldiers. So I thought it best that she and the 100 or so people with her went to a fortification where they would be protected by the English. It was a long journey, about 150 miles, and she was 74 years old. I was told she died later that year on December 23rd. No one knows for sure where she's buried. I've heard rumors she was buried somewhere around here, or in the area where she grew up back east. I guess we may never know where she was laid to rest. Well, tomorrow, July 8th, 1755 is a big day. This will be our last encampment before moving out to rendezvous at Frazier's cabin on our way to Fort Duquesne. This is a nice camp here at the head of Sugar Creek. Although we are not too far from the mouth of the Youghiogheny, the river is very wide here. I would recommend the bridle, and we crossed the Monongahela near Crooked Rock, followed the riverbank, and crossed again west of Turtle Creek. With the drought, the river is quite low, only about knee deep, so crossing will not be too difficult. And it will be a lot warmer than the last time I was in that river. We should arrive at the cabin by early afternoon, regroup, then begin the march to take the fort from the French. And sadly, we never made it to Fort Duquesne. We were attacked near Frazier's cabin, and in a couple hours, about 1,000 officers, soldiers, and militia were killed or wounded. That was 2/3 of the expedition. The men broke ranks and began running away. I was able to organize those who remained, and we began to retreat back to the camp. I was one of the lucky ones who was not wounded, although I did have 2 horses shot from under me, and afterwards discovered 6 bullet holes in my coat and hat. But General Braddock was not as fortunate. He was among those mortally wounded. He was about 60 years old and a fighter, but he died 4 days later on July 13th, on the way back to Cumberland. I gave his eulogy. Then we buried him in the road he forged not far from Fort Necessity. I had the men run wagons over the area so no one could tell it had been dug up to protect his body from the natives. Looking back on what happened, some may say he did not heed the advice given to him by me, Benjamin Franklin, and others concerning supplies, and the necessity of having a larger contingent of Indians among our forces. But he thought the British Army was stronger than the French, and victory was guaranteed. I learned a lot from him, and he must have thought 3 times before he died. He gave me the red ceremonial sash he wore with his battle uniform. I cherish that gift and keep it with me at all times. These last few years have been interesting, and I've learned a lot. And I really love this Ohio Valley. But now, it is time for me to set my sights on what lies ahead.
Thank you.
Where are you off to next?
Washington.
Where are you off to next?
We're following her.
But yeah. Headed this way. We're headed